What's proppin? G'day. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Kathy. This is where I talk about all my plants and everything else I'm passionate about. For my return visitors, thank you. Really do appreciate you guys coming back. Today, I'm going to talk about what I'm propagating. Not just now, but also what I've propagated in the past, what I've succeeded with, as well as what I've failed with, because there have been a few failures. Now I know that there are several ways to propagate plants. There's water, there's soil, there's by division, there's sphagnum moss. I've even heard of people propagating in perlite, which seems strange to me, but apparently it can be successful. Last year when I first started collecting plants and I discovered propagating, I just loved it. I love the idea of actually being able to make more plants from the plants that I've got. So I did a lot of propagations in water. I tried some in soil. Some were successful, some were not. I did a lot of propagating in winter, which is really not the best time. But you know, you're bored. You have all this time on your hands and you think, why not? Let's try it. One of my greatest successes is my Ficus benjamina, Midnight Beauty. I'm sure I've mentioned this in the past, but the mother plant, was attacked by pests last year. And also had a bad bout of the flu. And by the time I caught it, I think it might have been too far gone. So I took a couple of stem cuttings and I stuck them in water, hoping that if I did lose the mother plant, I could grow something from the leaves. And I actually did lose the mother plant, which was very sad because it was definitely one of my favorites. But the stem cuttings took. And I potted it up in spring, and I've had to repot her several times because she outgrew the pot so quickly. And I'll show you what she looks like from 3 leaves. This is less than a year's growth. To be honest, she's still growing. She's just very happy at the moment. She's almost as big as the mother plant was. So I was really, really pleased that I saved her. I also have a snake plant, Dracena Sansevieria trifasciata, and one of her leaves was damaged. I don't have any footage of this, but because it was damaged, I cut it off at the base. And I know that with Sansevierias, you need to propagate by division, but you can also propagate by leaves. I cut the leaf into several pieces and I just really screwed that up. But one leaf I had in water actually did take. It took months, I will say that. Sansevierias are really slow to propagate. It took at least 4 to 5 months, if not more. And I potted it up and it's currently living outside and it's doing really well. As you can see, it's just adorable. It's a little baby Sansevieria plant. I thought I'd leave her outside because my other Sansevieria, the mother plant, did so well when she was outside. She grew so fast that I thought it would help the baby get more established. The other thing I have been successful with last year, I haven't really done it this year, but last year I killed a lot of my succulents. I definitely overwatered them. So I took a lot of leaf cuttings. And when I propagate succulents, I actually put them aside and let them callus over at least 24 hours, if not several days. And what I love about succulents is you can just throw a leaf on top of soil and it will probably root, which is fantastic. I found this wonderful plastic planter and I moved all my succulents into it. And by putting them outside, they just grew exponentially. They grew so fast that I have a heap of repotting to do in spring. I don't know what I'm going to do with them all. I may give some away, most likely I will. I like to share the love. Because I had limited success with soil propagations last year, in fact I don't think I had much success at all, I was watching some videos on YouTube and I saw a video by Betsy Begonia as well as I think Harli G using a propagation box. And And I didn't want to do it with soil, so I decided to use sphagnum moss. And I've never used sphagnum moss before, and I'll show you what my propagation box is. It is just a cheap container that I bought at Kmart, and my carer drilled some holes into the top so that there was a little bit of airflow. And I got some sphagnum moss from Bunnings, and I wet it down, and then I strained it. And every time I had a cutting or something went badly with one of my plants, which happens occasionally, nobody's perfect, I would put them in the propagation box. And I had huge success with that. Even though it was winter, so many things did so well. Not everything though. And I thought I would go through what did well and what didn't. We'll start off with my peperomias. I'm a big fan of peperomias. I just love them all. And I almost killed 3 of them. My Caparata Emerald Ripple. Actually, all 3 of these peperomias were planted in a very heavy peat moss. And I find peperomias don't like that. They really are extra sensitive to overwatering. You can just put a dab of extra water and they'll just melt away. Well, not quite, but you know what I mean. And I just thought, oh no, I can't believe I killed this beautiful little plant. And I actually do use a moisture meter, and I find even with a moisture meter, I still struggle to know if my peperomias in peat moss need watering or not. So after I saw that it was deteriorating, and this happened to all 3 of these peperomias, I repotted my Emerald Ripple into a more airy mix with more perlite, but I think the damage had already been done. It was all mushy, the leaves would be breaking off, and it was just a complete disaster, and I was gutted. But I did take some cuttings, and I put them in my propagation box, and they took. And I am just ecstatic that I've saved it or resurrected it. And I just recently repotted it, and I'll show you what it looks like in its pot. It's been about a week now, so I'd like another couple of weeks to pass before I feel that it's doing okay. But so far, it looks like it's okay. So cross your fingers for me that I've been able to save this plant because I just loved it. The second peperomia that I had the same issue with heavy peat moss is my Peperomia Galaxy. It's also called Metallica. It looked like it was rotting. So I took some stem cuttings of that one and I planted a couple in soil, and I also put a plastic bag over it. I'll show you what that looks like. And I blew some air into the plastic bag, and then I tightened it underneath, and I left it alone for a couple of weeks, and they took really quickly. I also had some other stem cuttings which I thought I would try in the propagation box as well, and they took as well, so I was very happy. But I noticed that in the propagation box, the leaves, the new leaves that it was developing were quite small, and I thought it needed more light, so I repotted it in the soil with the other cuttings, and they're doing very well. So I'm very happy that I saved that one as well. And the last one is my Peperomia Piccolo Banda. I think it's Albovitata. I was so upset when I killed this one, and I did kill it. I can deny it as much as I like. I can use euphemisms, but the fact is I think I killed it. I haven't had it very long, so I was really upset that it was doing so badly. And I was being very careful with the overwatering, but it didn't matter. It just started going downhill, and I just found that every stem would be breaking off and breaking off. So I cut them back and I've put them in my propagation box, but so far they haven't taken. However, fortunately, I took some cuttings much earlier on. Well, actually no, I didn't take cuttings. These were leaves that had fallen, and I put them in the propagation box, I think back in April or May. And even though half of a leaf had rotted away, it still developed roots and became a plant. So I was very happy about that. So I have at least 2 cuttings that have grown into plants, and I've potted them up into soil, and they're tiny, but I thought they might benefit from having more light. Hopefully it will help them grow. But the propagation box has been extremely successful for me with peperomias. They just love it. The other things I'm growing or have grown in my propagation box are my Betsy Begonia. I've cut back the mother plant, and I had read that you can take cuttings and then grow into new plants, and then next spring they should rebloom. So I took a couple of cuttings, I had them in the propagation box, and they did really well, and they've grown roots, and I've now potted them up into soil, and let's hope that they take and that it reflowers for me, because I just love this plant. I did try a couple of cuttings in soil. They didn't do as well. The other thing I've propagated this winter is basil. My basil plant was really unhappy being outside in winter, so I brought it in and I cut it back, and I was a little worried I was going to lose it. So I took several cuttings and I put some in water and I put some in the prop box. They all took. This is a very easy plant to propagate. Now my basil plant is doing fine, so I thought, what am I going to do with all these cuttings? And I ended up potting them up and I gave them away to a friend. And the last thing I have been propagating in my prop box is my devil's ivy. I took several cuttings, I put some in water, I put some in soil, and I found that the water propagations, they do grow, but one cutting I had in water did not take at all, which, don't ask me why. I have no idea why that happened. I stuck in my prop box and it developed really huge roots. I tried to propagate another coleus I have, but I took some cuttings and it did not like the propagation box, I will say, and I've now planted them up in soil. The other thing that didn't take in my propagation box is my Chinese star jasmine. I have a huge plant right in front of my front door, and it is absolutely stunning when it's in bloom. And I tried to propagate it last year in winter and failed dismally. I had it in soil, I wrapped a plastic bag around it. Regardless, they didn't survive and they definitely didn't take. So I took several cuttings, I think in autumn, and I put them in the propagation box, but none of them took. They're still healthy, they're green, they haven't rotted, but they have not developed any roots. So there are certain things that don't seem to take as much to the sphagnum moss. I do intend to do a lot of propagating in spring. I have quite a few plants that I'd like to make fuller, and I will definitely take you guys along for that. So which method do I prefer? I don't know. Any that works, actually. I find propagating really exhilarating and satisfying to know that I've grown something from another plant, know that I've really helped it become a new plant of its own. I think that's why I love propagating by water, because I can see the roots developing. And the same with the prop box. I have to say, I do check it at least twice a week. I'm always curious to see what is taken or how much the roots have developed, if at all. I love watching propagations growing, and I just love giving away plants that I've propagated to my friends or family, and know that a part of me is in that plant that they have, because I know how I feel about one of my plants, my devil's ivy. My cousin Jim, who got me started into plants, or well, I blame him anyway, but regardless, he took cuttings from his mother plant. Now every time I look at it, I'm reminded of him. So there's just so many reasons why I love propagating, and I'm really enjoying trying different methods and finding what works for certain plants, what doesn't work for other plants. And you learn something, don't you? You realise that, well, jasmine does not like sphagnum moss. Well, it won't grow roots in sphagnum moss. So tell me what you love about propagating. Or if you haven't tried it, are you thinking of trying it? What is your favourite method of propagating? I'd love to know. That's why I created this channel. I wanted to have a community where we talk about what we do well with, what we don't, and we get to learn from each other. So please do let me know down in the comments, or you can contact me on Instagram, even though I don't spend a lot of time there, but I do check it. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, you can give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, you can subscribe to my channel. I hope you all have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend. Until next time, take care guys. Bye.